be that grand. Like, oppressive acts are every day, and they're reproduced from the foundation of our society and the ways that it normalizes things. So, what we tend to do, when we're so used to oppressive acts, is we say what? It's whatever. It is what it is. Raise your hand if you sometimes say that. All right? Well, as you saw in the end there, we're still not alone. If we realize that we're not alone, and we're still all saying it's whatever, we're not going to get anywhere. But if we're all not alone, and we're saying like this is not enough, we deserve better, then something can happen. There's still plenty of things, even on this campus, that we need to talk about what to heal from. This is really recent in Middletown. Right? The proliferation of these sheets of paper that have been going around, I think it's part 2. It started off as stamps, which has been a movement around the country by some unknown organizers, but it's been hidden. And this happened to one of our panelists today. Should talk more about it, I won't say too much about it, but this was just outside her door, on her bulletin board. And this was right around the time when the hurricane in Puerto Rico hit. All right, so imagine the timing of writing whatever that says right there. But it's okay to be white. Yeah, of course it is. Didn't nobody say it wasn't. But let me be crystal clear on this, right? Being white is not the same as white supremacy. Being white is not the same as white supremacy. Because white supremacy is a system and a structure of processes that are embedded in policy, in law, in culture, in our norms, in the language that we use, in the institutions that we're in. And it dominates those who are not white and excludes those who are not white. So when you see these types of images here, it's not saying that it's not okay to be white at all. It's saying that we have endured generations and centuries of saying it's not okay to be Native, it's not okay to be black, it's not okay to be in the islands, it's not okay to be brown and fight for ethnic studies. Right, in Arizona. Right? We are fighting for our humanity, and so this is recognizing our humanity. It is not to the exclusion of being white. But this is all complex, and I'm not saying that it's really easy to figure out. I'm not even saying it's comfortable. Right? I can only imagine, I'm clearly not white, but I can imagine if you're not used to being racialized like, for example, I am, just about every moment of every day I'm reminded of my racialization by others. If you're not used to it, it's going to be uncomfortable. Right? It's uncomfortable. But my challenge is let's sit with that uncomfortability. Let's understand that uncomfortability. Let's get to the root of that uncomfortability. And let's talk beyond white privilege. Because white privilege is a symptom of white supremacy. White supremacy happens first. It is the foundation. And then privilege comes from that. But we need to examine that. We need to study it. And if you don't know it, let's get to know it. Let's know it. Let's lace ourselves up with this. Right? What y'all say these days? Let's get woke. And I'm not saying let's get woke. I'm saying let's be on the process of getting woke all the time. Right? Because you never get woke. Right? You got to be ongoing with this whole thing here. Because what happens with white supremacy is it's so embedded in our culture, in our institutions, in our laws, in our policies, in our habits, in our behaviors, in our language, that everything becomes natural and normal. Becomes invisibilized. Right? And some of that has been happening here. Right? Because what's there to heal from? From me? What happened? It's my first year. In my first quarter here, towards the end of the first quarter, I saw this. I saw these 3 signs here with X's on them. And I got notified when I was at home. So someone said, hey, we're going to change your signs. Somebody marked them up. I said, show me what the marking looks like. All right? I took a photo of this, and I said, oh man, you know, my office mate, Dr. Mari Gray, her name plate was reversed. I was like, that's messed up. What's going on with that? What is that supposed to say? What does that mean? And then one of our office assistants hit me up and said, we're going to get you a new nameplate. And I was like, what I need a new nameplate for? Because I didn't see it. And it's hard to see from the light in here, but there's a fat X right there too. You can kind of see some of that outline. And when that hit, that struck me a little bit deeper than the posters of those, than the crossing out of those signs that I saw earlier. Because it almost seemed like there was a message being sent to me, right? And it just visually, when you look at that, the black over the white, it pops, right? It just pops out and stands out to say, Mr. Reyes, we got a message for you. What you stand for is not what I stand for, and I'm going to let you know that. I'm going to take the extra effort to make you know that. And it gets tiring. Over a lifetime of dealing with acts of repression, it breaks you down, almost like you're a house being weathered, right? Over and over and over again, it affects you. And as a matter of fact, there's this research scholar in public health. Her name is Arlene Geronimus, and she hypothesized that there's this weathering effect for specifically African American women. That says that because of socioeconomic conditions, because of racialized gender depressions, because of a variety of other things that they're dealing with in their communities, aging happens faster than, say, for example, white women or people in a higher social class. Right? There's a weathering effect that's happening. And some of us on early 20s on up, and raise your hand if you feel the effects of weathering. All right? It happens, but we need to understand it. Not throw our hands up and say it is what it is. Because even here on this campus, acts of oppression can happen. And we just need to be prepared. Because even though we are the most ethnically diverse campus, according to this in the West, we can experience being called the N-word on our first day of work. We can experience having our work that criticizes number 45 that's put up in Meiklejohn taken down. When that happens, it hurts. It's traumatic, but it still happens here. So yeah, somebody crossed things out, and I was like, all right, this is how it's gonna go. Let me roll up my sleeves, because if you can cross things out, then well, yeah, I can cross things out too. This isn't a sad story, right? We're not here today to wallow in our oppression, as some people say. I'm not tired of wallowing in my oppression. No, not at all, right? Like the fight is ongoing, everlasting, and so forth. And so this is what we're talking about today. And I want you to know that what was beautiful is I was never alone. Even though maybe one or two people crossed things out, when it hit, folks came up and they stood by me and they said, now we got you, G, because it's not really about you. It's about all of us. And when we get you in this moment, we say that we get in ourselves and we say that we're going to cross it out too, because all of that is not how we get down here at East Bay.
That's right.
That's right. And it just didn't happen here at East Bay. I want to thank Oakland High right here. Valeska Munoz in her science class of newcomer students made that. I want to thank the teachers over at Urban Promise Academy in Oakland, 7th grade, for putting this one together. This is Matt Takamoto over at Glenview Elementary with his 4th and 5th graders. This one right here is Doctora Reina Leon from St. Mary's College. This one right here is Lori Ganser, an English teacher in Minnesota. Woo! Right? Like, give it up for yourselves and the folks who are crossing things out.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not alone, what I'm ultimately, these are folks at UC Davis. This right here is Erica Cola Arenas, who heads up the Imagining America program. And this right here are is a 7th grade girls group over at Lazier School in Oakland. But what I was saying is that I'm not alone, and neither are you. All right? And we need to remind ourselves that every day we need to work and not being alone, because it's really easy to isolate. Raise your hand if you just felt like isolating yourself sometimes. Right? That happens to me. It's hard not to stay in that place. And so we fight for this. We fight for diversity, and we fight for inclusion, but we can't stop there. It's just a starting place. So let me make this personal real quick once again. These are my 2 beautiful children. Yeah. This is little Davao here. He's 3 years old. And Davao is named after a city in the southern region of the Philippines. And his name represents the southern Moro warriors who fought the fiercest against the Spaniards and the Americans during the time of colonization and conquest. We needed to invoke a powerful name for this young boy, because when he was in utero, they said that there was a mass in his left lung. And so he wasn't sure if he was going to be born or not. He was born, he breathed well, but they still took out that part of his lung anyway. And he doesn't seem any different, because he has ancestors behind him in the spirit of the warriors. I'm sorry. Right here is my daughter Mayedi, and Mayedi is named after the Filipino moon goddess and protector of women. Woo! And she's 8, that's right. She's 8 years old right now. She's also a Scorpio, so I feel that every day. Talk about aggression. She's fierce. I don't even know what to do with myself and her. But check it out. I read to them every night. And one of the stories I read to them is a book called We Bought That Crab Life. And so Crab Life, I'm going to tell you the story right quick so you know what my kids hear. So we bought that Crab Life like this. So there's this clear tank that's right in the middle of some beautiful brown sand. And in this tank there's a bunch of crabs. The crabs are just going all over each other, pulling at each other, grabbing each other. And one crab finally says, "Man, this sucks. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna try to get out on that sand because I'm about that crab life." So other crabs are like, whatever. So the crab is trying to get out, everything like that. Another crab is like, "You ain't gonna get out. I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna get out." So that crab pulls the first crab down, manages to get out. Another crab is like, "Oh, I'm gonna get out too." All right. Another crab says, "Hey, you're not gonna get out. I'm gonna get out." He says, "Oh yeah, watch me, son." So that first crab climbs up, gets out. Another group of crabs is working the same thing. "I'm gonna get out. No, I'm gonna get out." So the first crab's like, "No, I'm gonna get out. Watch this." Starts climbing up, and then the third crab comes and pulls that sucker down and says, "Oh man, I'm gonna get out. See ya, peace." Right? All of a sudden, there's a handful of crabs out on that sand. They're like, "Oh, we bought that crab life. This is pretty good." "Oh, wait a minute. There's a hell of seagulls up in there." What the? Man, I don't know what to do, but it's kind of uncomfortable being in this space here, especially when folks don't look like, sound like, talk like us. Don't do the same things that we do. Right? So maybe we need to help out some of the crabs in that glass tank. So, all right, let's help some of them out. Let's get some of that. Okay, we got another one. But every time they help a crab, it seems like 5, 10 more are being put into that tank. And finally, one of the crabs was on the sand and says, "Hey, can anybody read here?" "Oh, I could," says Fred. Fred the crab is like, "What you want me to read?" And then I think those are words with it. What does that say? It says, Monterey Bay. That's what's up, we in the bay. No, wait, hold on. Monterey Bay Aquarium. The question we should be asking is not, can we get out of that one little glass tank? The question we should be asking is, who put us in the tank in the first place? And who keeps us in that tank? Who makes us think like we belong in that tank, and then if we get out, then other people shouldn't get out? That's the question that we should be asking. So diversity and inclusion is important, but it's not enough. What we need to do is we need to question the very structures, the very practices that excluded us in the first place. When we dismantle that, what we're doing is we're working to change things, right? So how do we disrupt? How do we dismantle those very things that homogenize us and want to exclude us in the first place? Well, CrossThisOut was a beautiful response by several people across the country that really wanted to focus on a positive thing to oppression. Really wanted to focus on this is how we represent diversity and inclusion. And I say yes, but there are 4 key principles that I want to also make clear. And the first of those principles is that we, through CrossThisOut in our lives, we need to question the unquestionable, which are those things that we don't question because they've been normalized in our lives, but they've been naturalized in our lives. And then we need to visibilize the invisible, which are those people, those stories, those ideas that again are just swept under the carpet, swept under the rug. And then we politicize the neutralize, right? There's no reason why we can't take a knee and recognize what Cap was recognizing that first. In an NFL game, and subsequently other games across the country, in all ages. Because organized sports is part of culture, and culture is also part of a political system in our world. Right? So that's part 1. Right? Question the unquestionable, visibilize the invisible, politicize the neutralize, and that's also why on this slide right here is this very particular words. Right? I'm invoking Dr. King's beloved community. I'm invoking Robin Kelly's radical imagination. I'm invoking Jeff Duncan Andrade's critical hope, Ernest Morell's revolutionary love, Sean Ginwright's radical healing. The list goes on. And these are complex ideas that are based off of universal themes. And us who put this quilt up can't stop at the quilt. The next step is the conversations. The next step is the educative moments where we say, let's talk about how Huey Newton talked about self-determination, what that really means for communities. Right? So these are moments. The second principle I want to highlight real quick is we need to inspire from consumption to production. Now, I had an idea at one point in time, the idea still evolved. CrossThisOut was an evolutionary process. And so for those who are getting involved, take part in that evolution. Take part in your own creativity, your own agency to change it as it makes sense to you, for your own context, for your own community, right? And then you become not just consumers, but you become producers as well. And that's ultimately what we need to do. So we need to be part of the process to also produce in ways that are critical and humanizing. And when we do things, whether you're a professor, whether you're a program director, whether you're an organizer or a leader, let's not just build for younger folks or folks to follow, let's also build with them. So CrossThisOut stands in a place that says that we can make this a cultural project together. So how do we evolve this together? How do we work to make this relevant for our community? And you saw some of the changes that folks are making in the schools, the K-12 schools. And the fourth piece I want to highlight is heal the soul. Because when I came to campus the next day to look at my wall and to make this art installation and CrossThisOut, I had anxiety. I had anxiety the night before, that whole day, as if I was getting ready for a physical fight. And so I had to put mindfulness into practice and say, like, recognize what's happening in your body, breathe, find your body, find the present moment, and get to work. Because when we experience trauma, we experience it in the emotional center of our brain. And if it just resides there, then we internalize that, and then we experience weathering. But if we lateralize that trauma to the cognitive part of our brain, then what we're doing is we're processing it, we're critiquing it, we're making sense of it, we're trying to figure out ways to act through and from it, right? And all that is a process of healing. And when we do that, let's make sure we don't do that alone, right? And let's make sure we don't just end with these moments where CrossThisOut happens. Because CrossThisOut itself is not enough. What we need to do is we need to invoke radical courage and imagination to figure out the alternative. So we can't just critique all day, right? We can't just disrupt everything all day. We need to recreate. Raise your hand if you've been like that in class. You know you have. Let me show. I know your professors are here. Okay, little kids in my car. Alright, and that's right there in the little station in East Oakland. Raise your hand if you're from Oakland. Raise your hand if you heard of Oakland, know Oakland. Driven through Oakland. Been afraid to be in Oakland. Alright, that's the norm. Right, this is the norm of how the media portrays us in Oakland, how we in Oakland reproduce the ways in which people portray us, and how other people outside of Oakland portray us, right? It's a place of death. It's a place where people don't live, survive. It's a place of concrete. It's broken. It just needs to be fixed. Right? But those of us in Oakland and in similar communities know that underneath this concrete is soil. Yeah. Fertile soil. And underneath that soil are seeds just waiting to be cultivated. Change the conditions, and you change the landscape. And let's remember that they try to bury us, but they forgot that we cease. So with that, let's go ahead and plant seeds, and let's do what Tupac said, which is let's be reborn, all right, in everything that we do so that we can create a better world.